Here is people able to recognise something is not right with a repair and then have a place to go with the understanding that they will get dealt with fairly. And that's happening. It is a good thing.
Question number 11, Dr. Parmjeet Parmar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Workplace Relations and Safety. What update can he give on workplace health and safety?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the first anniversary of the passage of the Health and Safety, of the Health and Safety at Work Act coming into force. The Act was the first major reform of workplace health and safety legislation in New Zealand in more than 20 years, and struck the right balance.
Order, order. I'm quite keen to hear the answer. Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
It struck the right balance between ensuring workplaces are made safer without imposing unnecessary red tape on business. I'm pleased to see the responsible and measured way New Zealand businesses and workers have responded to the change. And while the reforms are still being bedded in, we are on track to meet the government's target of a 25% reduction in harm by 2020. We've made good progress in the last year, and as a country, we're better off. Kids are still climbing trees, voluntary organisations continue to perform their vital functions, and our workplaces are safer.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, Dr. Parmjeet Parmar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What changes has the Minister seen in workplaces so far?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Mr. Speaker, results from the 2016 Business Operations Survey showed a material increase in time spent on workplace health and safety since 2012. For the higher-risk agricultural, forestry and fishing sectors, the increase was even larger, with a 90% of construction and of those companies spending time and resources on health and safety. Now, while those targets are important and a strong legislative framework is a good grounding, what is most important, Mr. Speaker, are changes in behaviours and attitudes, because that is the thing that will make sure all workers go home safe at the end of the day.
Question number 12, Chris Hipkins.